feel like I need some. I mean, there's music playing if you're listening on the podcast,
We'll just
but I
pretend
can't
like we
hear it
can
right
hear
now.
it.
I might need to change it to a rave song or something. Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. We freaking did it!
Wow. It's an extraordinary ending to a wild and bizarre season. Yeah, who would have thought? I was saying best case scenario, 6th place. A lot of other people saying best
I
case
said
scenario,
not even
8th
Europe.
place. Yeah.
I said not even Europe. Oh my gosh. So happy to be wrong. So just insane.
And we pulled our weight too. Of course, Frankfurt did their part in helping us, but at the end of the day, Kovac and the players really took the responsibility from themselves to pull off something extraordinary.
I think I said it, but welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name is Jacob, joined by Carver. Super hyped. Dortmund made it, secured their spot in the Champions League, landing in 4th, which we'll talk about the Bundesliga table in general, but finished better in the table than we did last year. Maybe not on points. We'll talk about that later, but we did get that 4th spot. As you said, we did it on our own. I think the scenarios that came down with Frankfurt and Freiburg playing each other, who are both sitting in 3rd and 4th, that result didn't matter if we won by 3, which we ended up pulling out anyways. There were some moments where we were leading, and I think I'm getting them confused, but at one point, like, we were out even though we were winning the match. Just how that result was going.
Yeah,
but it all worked out. We took care of business. We got the job done and did it on our own terms. The other result ended up going our way anyways, but nice to do it with the 3 goals and just take care of business as we've been doing for the last couple of months, as we needed to do to get ourselves out of the position we were in and land ourselves in Champions League. It's crazy. This season has been so bad and tumultuous, and it's been horrible. And to finish in Champions League and to just kind of, I don't want to say get back to business. That's what it feels like. It's just like, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. I know it took a lot of stress to get here, but yeah, I'm glad we're just kind of back on track. It feels like we're back on track, especially if we just move forward with Kovac. That might be a bigger discussion for later in the summer. And I've been trying to see a lot or look into any news, rumors, transfers, anything like that. I haven't seen anything with Kovac specifically. When I was watching this match back, I didn't get to watch it live. I was actually watching with my brother on replay, but as soon as the final whistle went, and I was like, give that man his money. It's like, I heard there was a bonus for getting in Champions League. Give that man his money. And right now I'm like, cool, let's keep him. Let's just keep it going.
Yeah, I would be satisfied with him going forward as well, just given the mountain that he had to climb with this team on his back. And he made sure to emphasize at the end of the day that this is very much a team effort. But don't forget, just a few months ago in January, Dortmund lost 4 of their first 4 games in the calendar year. Fast forward a little bit to match day 21. Dortmund sat in 11th place with a negative record and goal differential. They were losing to virtually every single relegation candidate and bottom table side on a consistent basis. You had Mike Tolberg come in, give him a little bit of kick in the ass. He's now also the U23 coach, but he brought in a little bit of stability there with 2 crucial wins in the Bundesliga and the Champions League before Kovac's arrival. Kovac did have a few stumbles along the way, but with his experience, with his discipline and clear game plans, he was able to give this team another proper kick in the ass and lift them back to top 4. Again, bare minimum, but where we should be in the most elite level competition in club football. And the mentality of shift in the entire team, just to play aggressive, to play dominant football, where Dortmund are comfortable and they've historically played for a long time now. It's a formidable act and obviously great relief for all the fans, because we were looking real bleak near, I would say, Manchester United territory there for a little, I don't want to say a brief period, but a period nonetheless earlier this spring.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I guess going to this match, we'll rewind a little bit. I've been saying it. It's like, it's hard for me. It has been hard for me to just be fully positive and optimistic, because like we've seen what happens when it comes down to the wire. And yeah, we had the schedule was on our side. The final match day opponent was on our side, with Holstein Kiel. We're playing at home, but we've seen it before with what happened with Mainz, right, a couple seasons ago. And then so still, I guess, going into the match, like your mindset going into this match, because what I'm going to get at is like everything just seemed to go our way, and very early on, like those nerves were kind of settled and pushed away. It was like the calls the calls early in this match, like the first 10 minutes of this match was like, it has to happen. It has to happen. Even with the uncertainty of the last match, just, yeah, vibes were high very early in this match. But what were your thoughts going into it? Did you go to Amsterdam to watch this, or what were you doing?
I did, yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of people there for a lot of different clubs. Shout out to my friend and basically employer, Sasha Bauer, who is from Frankfurt. So him and I watched the two different games next to each other and got to celebrate both of our clubs getting in the Champions League here. One thing that did give me a little bit more comfort in going into this game is Dortmund are clearly a much better side when they are chasing things rather than being on top and having it in their hands. You mentioned Mainz. There's plenty of other times that this has happened just in recent years, but whenever we actually have our backs against the wall, when we're the ones chasing, that's when we can actually be at our deadliest. And you saw it here again. Yes, there was a red card early on. Yes, there was a penalty early on. Dortmund did kind of fail to capitalize on that, and they slowed down quite a bit with their speed of play. And I think they went on to generate just 0.3 XG in that first half after the penalty, but really came back to life in the second half, was able to put the game to bed. But yeah, thankfully, again, like you mentioned, at home against the relegation side, Kiel did find some form as of late. I think they've only won 6 games in total this whole season, and 2 of them were in their last 5 against Gladbach, and I forget who the other one was actually. So actually not bad oppositions. Might have been Augsburg, and were able to come in. I think they had 2 away wins in the whole season, so it's the lowest in the league. So a lot of different factors here, but mostly pointing in the favor of Dortmund, who were able to do the job at the end of the day.
And we'll jump into the lineup. Kobel in goal. Our back three with Sula, Anton, and Benzabaini. Rierson, our right wing back. Sabitzer and Mecha in the middle. Svensson, left wing back. Brandt gets the captain armband, starting alongside Adeyemi, and then Girassi up top. I mean, what we've been seeing, little changes here and there, but same formation, same game plan. You have
Kovac knows what's effective. The only real change was Sabitzer coming on for Gross, which was due to a suspension here. Sabitzer, of course, has had a very underwhelming season so far, but has able to put on some pretty decent performances as of late, and was able to slot in here going into the last game day. Yeah, not many thoughts outside of that, no.
And we mentioned it, but I mean, right off the bat, we start with, I think it was maybe 90 seconds in, maybe a little less, where we get the penalty. Mecha gets taken down in the box, and then Girassi steps up and just bangs it home from the spot. That's where things get a little tricky. Like if you would have missed that, if you missed something like that so early,
my heart was kind of racing a bit.
It would have been panic station, but yeah, we buried it. Start celebrating early, good vibes early on, and then just a few minutes later, in the 9th minute, Holstein Kiel get a red card. And I do think, as you mentioned, like XG I would have liked to see us dominate a little more, get another goal shortly after that to kind of like not put it to bed right away, but just have a little more control. But I think it can also be difficult playing against 10 men. They're just going to sit and hunker back. And yeah, while they're relegated and they don't have a ton to play for, they know they can still make it hard for us, especially when we are playing for something. Yeah, so the rest of the first half, not as dominant as I would have liked or I wanted, but come back out second half. I'm sure Kovac ripped him apart in the locker room again, as I'm assuming he's been doing, and we're able to start the second half with the goal immediately. And who would have known Sabitzer finally gets his goal this year after scoring some very important ones for us last year.
Yeah, and even then, you could argue that Kiel wasn't necessarily entirely out of the game yet, despite the circumstances of being 2-0 down and a man down. They were still fighting. It wasn't really until the 3rd minute from Mecha's finish inside the box to really put this game to bed here. And like you mentioned, it could have been a little bit cleaner in that first half, given, we were already up a goal and we have the numerical advantage here. But there was some adjustments that Kovac made at halftime and just kind of give them a little bit more of a push that they needed to go on and bring on that self-confidence, which is actually what Lars Ricken mentioned on Sky after the game on how Kovac managed to bring consistency to this team. And he mentions the team took responsibility for themselves. You could see that after Nuri was released, it can't always just be the coach in that respect. The players were very attentive. And Nico gave them an extremely strong words at the beginning. In that moment, they gained some self-confidence. He put his finger on some sore spots and demanded things. That's why it's so important for us to get Kovac to begin with, because he brings that brutal experience both as a player and in his coaching career, and you learn something from that. And I think a lot of the players did too. Şahin, of course, also a former Dortmund player, but he's still got a lot of learning to do when it comes to being a coach, especially at a club in statue like this. And Kovac was, able to give them the push that they needed in the end.
I almost said coming out of this match, but I guess the last couple months, and now that the season has officially wrapped, do you think there's anyone who kind of been on the, not, I guess, periphery, but maybe on the outs, or maybe us in the fan base have been calling to like, okay, we need to move them on this summer? Is there anyone who stood out in the last couple of months and maybe earned another year?
Are there people that have stood out in the last month? Yes. Are those same people earning themselves another year? I don't know. And if I may take this opportunity to plug real quick, every year, if you're new to the show, we do a season review form. The link will be in the description. It's also on all of our socials, and that's a chance to give you the opportunity to put in some input of yourselves for something like a squad overhaul. We have sections talking about the ratings for each individual player, but also who would you move forward with and without in the squad here. So there are definitely some names there that come to mind for something like that. Brandt is probably the number one, given he scored one of the best goals of the season. He's been really sharp, and the system is starting to cater to him a bit more too, and he looks more focused, and he's clearly been a lot more effective because of that. I think it really depends on what kind of business we're trying to do this summer. If we're trying to go after Cherokee, if we're trying to go after Joe Bellingham, both of them are not. Cherokee is a number 10. Job is not, at least primarily, a number 10. If we're going after both of those, I don't know how necessary if it's going to be for Brandt, especially it depends on what kind of suitable offers we're going to get. But, if we're able to wiggle around and fill some other holes and keep Brandt, it's not the worst thing in the world given, how he ended the season. We just need to see more because in the end, this season was just not enough for the primary number 10 of this team that, unwritten really kind of took on the next role of Royce after he left. He very much was under his wing. So we need to see more from players like him.
Yeah, and I do apologize because before we started recording, I was like, we talked about we need to plug the survey, and then we just started dancing and celebrating.
That's fine.
We made Champions League.
That's
so
all right.
I was like looking at the notes. I was like, oh no, I missed the survey. That's right at the top of the thing that I was supposed to start the podcast with. But yeah, I know everyone loves the transfers and the rumors and who we think needs to be in and out. And because you love it so much, that's why we want to get you guys involved. So that's why we love doing the survey. We've been doing them after every season, and it's cool to not just give our feedback and input, but get your guys' feedback and input too. So again, make sure you fill out that survey. If you haven't already, you can find the link on our socials and of course in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this. But yeah, fill out the survey to get involved, and we'll be doing an episode to go through all of that here very, very soon. Quickly on that too, I'll just say Brandt, his contract goes till 2026. If he sticks, I have no problem with him sticking around next season. I know it looks like Cherokee and Joe Bellingham might be our top targets where, Cherokee can't play that 10 position. I think Joe plays a little deeper in the midfield. And so if we're sticking with this formation, I think I'm curious who that other, I don't know, there's a lot more question marks around Cherokee, I think, if we can get him in and some other clubs interested. And so the question is who then can be that 10, because I see Brandt as maybe not filling that role the entire season, but maybe cutting back on
it'll give him
minutes.
Some good competition for rotation too.
And that's what you need anyways, right?
Mm-hmm. Whether it's going to be a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-1-2, either way, I think Cherokee can slot into either of those roles. And a midfield of Mecha and Bellingham, I think, can actually be pretty awesome. They could definitely boss a lot of games in the Bundesliga and international competitions as well. I'm trying to think anyone else that's just to going back to your question. I think not standing out just these last few months, but really the whole season. Ben Zabaini, I would say, definitely earns himself another year here, especially as Schlotterbeck's going to continue being out until we're looking at least probably late September, early October. We're going to need a left-footed player that can dominate like he does physically. He's got pace. He's clearly slotted into his role really well and carried a lot of weight after the absence of Schlotterbeck. And unless some really ludicrous offer comes in and we're able to replace him, I think he's got to be my number 2. That would be earning himself a year, or probably number 1, actually, excuse me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think he's the one who I've seen a little more, you can call them rumors, but reports about him actually going out. I think Marseille has been interested with maybe 20 million.
Yeah.
Offer. Maybe that's what Dortmund's looking at to get out of him, which I feel like that's a decent fee to get out of him. Yeah, but while we've been able to manage, even with Schlotterbeck going out, I still see that that back line as a weak point, frail point, especially if talks with Sula moving on. Like we need more bodies in there. We've been saying it for the last 2 seasons, if not more, but we need more center backs, especially if we're trying to play three of them. And then to keep going with this a little bit, like Anton, I know early in the season, I feel like I hit it a lot, but when there was more of the criticism from Brandt when it's like he's not doing enough, he's not playing well, it's like no one is doing enough, no one is playing well. And I think you can put Anton in that category too, where a lot of people were he just got here, right? There's the likelihood of shipping him off after a year is very small and slim, but I think a lot of the fan base, people we connect with at least and listen, and people in our Discord were probably on that, like just said, get rid of him, like bring someone else in. But I think he's been, as the team has found its form, he's definitely found a place, which is what we've needed. We've needed this leader in the back line with Schlotterbeck going out, and he's stepped into that perfectly. So I'm very happy if he can just kind of keep that form. And from what we've seen at Stuttgart, we know he's a good player. It just hasn't clicked at Dortmund yet.
Yeah, that's a great shout. And just given that if we get rid of him, then we're in the exact same position again. So I don't see it happening personally. To flip it though, and I did want to still talk about just the end of this Kiel game, but also noting on some of these players in and out of the door. We're looking at the last game for a handful of Dortmund players that have been here for several years now, like the likes of Gio Reyna. That looks like it's pretty much done deal, and he was very emotional at the end of this game. We touched on Brandt a little bit. That's still kind of a question mark. These next 2 or 3 weeks might reveal a little bit more. Jamie Gittens seems like that's pretty, I wouldn't say confirmed by any means or anything like that, but that's what it's leaning towards is him being out as well. And then Chukwuemeka, according to reports these last few weeks, Dortmund are not really interested in pursuing a permanent transfer for him. So all difference makers from this year to years prior. But unfortunately, it looks like the end of the road for a few of these players. And again, ones that have had longer tenures at Dortmund too. It's a shame that Gio didn't work out because, he's clearly a world-class talent on his day. And I know it's like a bold statement, but you go back to one of his first few games at Dortmund when he was 16 years old and he's scoring a banger against Bremen in the Champions League against Paris, that simple turn, but also a super effective turn he had to set up Holland. Those small things are really, really effective and crucial for games like that. And Gio was clearly able to bring his talent very early on, but just the matter of injuries, the personal things, it wasn't really meant to be, it seems like, and which is sad. But kind of same for JG too. But it seems like with him, he's just kind of wanting a different change of scenery. And we'll obviously find out more here soon. But either way, some players at their last game for Dortmund now.
To bring it back to Kiel a little bit and kind of stay on this topic, I want to hit on Daniel Svensson, who I believe he has officially signed.
Yes, he has.
Bought him because he's been on loan, but I think that happened right after we recorded our last episode, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Showed up again in this game, got himself an assist. While he didn't get an assist on the was it the Sabitzer goal, he had the original cross, and just he's been so good and fully deserves it. And not a big fee. We've talked about it a lot, but now it's official, and I'm excited to see what he can continue to do and how he can continue to grow next season.
Yeah, it was announced here on May 14th, and he's got a contract signed until 2029. So pretty solid signing there. I think the fee was only like 6.5 or something like that, give or take. So like you mentioned, a big bargain. It's been a no-brainer. We've seen him play for months now at Dortmund, and he's very clearly slotted in very, very well, not only into the elite level of football that he's played, but also just to this system with Kovac as well. And he fits the Dortmund identity, I think, really well too. So a very, very solid signing to start the summer, and I hope we can continue to build on these sorts of signings going forward.
Did you have anyone else from this match, or anything else?
Not too much from this game specifically. Outside of that, on the last day, if anyone didn't know by this point, but Stuttgart knocked Leipzig out of Europe completely with their last game of the season. So that's fantastic. Leipzig were on the opposite end of us just not even a month or two ago, where they were actually in a Champions League spot. And given the Rosa decline and their complete inability to find any sort of stability afterwards either, they kept slipping, and that makes the results of the Bundesliga that much more glorious. You have more traditional clubs getting into Champions League spots. You have more traditional clubs coming into the Bundesliga next year from the likes of Hamburg. Cologne are coming back. The playoffs are happening actually pretty much as we speak, but a lot of traditional clubs in general are finding success, and you have the likes of Leipzig crashing out. It's a beautiful sight.
Yeah, on the playoff note, because that game just wrapped up shortly before we started recording, but Heidenheim and Elversberg playing in the promotion relegation playoff, and I didn't realize it was two legs, so I tried to pull this game up because I looked at it was 2-2
Yeah.
right when we were about to record or right before we got on, and I was like, oh my god, I thought it was going to go into extra time. I was like, I got to have this game up while we're recording, but it will go to a second leg. But yeah, that's exciting. It's exciting that that's already a high scoring affair
Mm-hmm.
for that playoff. And then back up to the top of the table, I just want to run through just kind of how things rounded out. Love to hear Leipzig getting knocked out completely. Bayern, of course, win the league on 82 points. Also, I will note that I just think it's so hilarious and so funny. Harry Kane finally gets his trophy the same year that Tottenham Hotspur get a trophy.
Crystal Palace won their first major trophy, to my knowledge, since their founding, which is in 1861. Pretty bizarre year for stuff like this. Yeah, really across the board,
Newcastle
across
won the
other
EFL
countries.
Cup, like
Yeah,
first trophy in a long time, but
yeah,
just
very.
the Tottenham winning the same year that because Kane didn't win
Hmm,
anything last year, and it's pretty funny.
it
Love to
is.
see it.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
don't
but
have. Go ahead.
oh yeah, run through the rest of the top four. Bayern Munich 82 points. Leverkusen finishing second, 69 points. Frankfurt get that third spot with 60, and of course we get the fifth spot with 57 points. And then looking just compared to last year, we finished with a higher points total with 63 points last year, but fifth. And of course, we landed in the we got the extra Champions League spot. So just looking at that though in points totals, because points were down in the Bundesliga compared to last year, and we end in a higher spot with less points. How would you compare this season to last year? And which one do you think is more successful?
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, we finished fifth last year. That's tough. This season, I don't even know. I mean, given how it was going in January and how we ended, it's nothing really short of a miracle here. And Kovac mentioned on Sky actually after the game too that it felt nice to receive the praise and all that, especially from the management. And the players know this too. But at the end of the day, we are achieving the bare minimum, which is fourth, and that's a step up from fifth last year. But either way, if you just look at just the points that we lost to relegation sides, I think it's six at least from the likes of Kiel, of course, we lost away. We lost to Bochum. Augsburg did the double on us this year. A lot of Hoffenheim, too, got a draw here earlier in the year. A lot of teams that are not only in the bottom table, but the bottom part of the bottom table are getting results consistently against Dortmund. So if you just take those points and add on to the end, who knows where we could have actually been? You know, it wouldn't have been challenging for the title by any means, but much higher. Definitely would have been in third, and we might be singing a slightly different tune, but either way, at the end, we still got Champions League. It's still going to do a lot for revenue, and combine that with the Club World Cup. We actually somehow did find some stability here with just the coaching staff, which is really, really great. And I think we also have a clearer idea of what we want to do with the squad. So there was a lot more answers than questions because, 2 months ago it was the complete opposite of that. I had no idea the direction that this club was going in. And thankfully, we have a much clearer idea now. So I'd probably say that because, I mean, this season's probably more successful. Long-winded answer, but even with Shaheen coming in, it was always going to be a big question mark. And although he said a lot of right things to the media during preseason, yeah, it's so much to dissect.
I mean, the contrast this year is so insane. Like it was so bad, and it ended so good, obviously.
And last year wasn't great either, too. I mean,
No,
I
but
know I don't want to do any revisionism with Terzic because the football was pretty
yeah,
horrendous under him too. But we cannot also understate that he did get us to places where this club did not see for well over a decade. Remember, he got us to a Champions League final. He won us a Pokal in 2021, and he gave us an opportunity to win the Bundesliga for the first time in over a decade as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the players do have to pull their own weight. And while, of course, we did finish fifth, and whenever we even did have that opportunity to win the Bundesliga, the points were very low. Terzic did bring us to those places, and I'm curious to see where Kovac can take us next, given from 11th to
yeah,
4th in just a few of months. I'd be curious to see what he can do with an entire preseason.
yeah. I mean, it is weird to compare them, and maybe this is a good question for if you're listening or watching. Let us know your thoughts. What year was more successful? And maybe it's just looking at the Bundesliga because obviously you can look at the Champions League. Although, like I would say, like this was a pretty good Champions League run too. And that I think that there is a bit of recency bias, or I don't want to sound like there's recency bias with how we were performing more But I think it is so true that it feels like we're in such a better spot than we were last year. I mean, towards the end, we're like, yeah, we ended up getting fifth. Like Terzic got that job done, which we were pretty down on anyways. Like I remember us like being excited that we were in Champions League, but still really thinking it was a disappointment that we only finished fifth. Like that seemed like such a letdown. And I think, well, maybe, yeah, we did get more points overall last year. And on average, if you're just looking at points, then maybe last year was more successful in the Bundesliga. But what we've been playing at and the level we've been playing at and who we have in charge now and the football he's playing, like I think he can be successful in Champions League too with this club. And it just feels like we're in such a better spot, which is why it's easier to say this is maybe more successful because the path ahead is way more clear and it looks way more promising. But let us know, comment on YouTube or leave a comment on Spotify, or you can send us a message or get connected on our Discord. However you connect with us, make sure you let us know because it is a really interesting talking point.
That one game against Madrid in the Champions League final is different. Then obviously there is no need for the conversation at all. But yeah, just given that with no silverware, and then you're just sitting there looking at the finish in the table, it's a hard pill to swallow. And we also stumbled at the end of the last season too, despite the great Champions League run. I mean, remember that we drew against Leverkusen, we got beat by Leipzig pretty bad. And then we lost to Mainz towards the end of the season too. We got beat by Stuttgart in April. So we were kind of crawling over the finish line domestically last year as well, you know?
Yeah. Before we get into Club World Cup, which is coming up very quick, boys don't have a ton of time off. Do you have a BVB Frauen update?
Nothing big by any means. I just wanted to say that they ended their season on a win as well, and they will obviously be promoted as they secured that already and beat Schalke here in the league a few weeks back at the end of April. So they got their promotion secured, and they're ending the season strong too. That's pretty much it. Yeah, just catch them in the Regionalliga West next year, and hopefully we can continue climbing. It's only a matter of time now. I mean, we're in the third division already.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. All right, looking ahead at the FIFA Club World Cup. I never like this time of year because there's no football, but it is coming up quick. Although I do feel like it's going to be a long couple of weeks. But we do at like Premier League still has another week. The Champions League final is in there. There's some football to carry you through. I think that maybe week off is going to be a little tough, but there's going to be content. The guys are going to be back to training. I know they are on vacation right now, but not a lot of time before we get back into competition, whether you're excited for it or not. It is Dortmund playing for some money and for a trophy, and they're coming to the States, which is the biggest thing. Of course, if you're listening internationally, Carver and I are from America. Spoiler alert. Sorry to let you down.
Yeah. I know it's probably really difficult to pick up on after these first 4 years with the St. Louis and everything in the back.
So really exciting for us. And I know a lot of our listeners and our friends like in New York, and we're in the Midwest, not too far from Cincinnati, and that's where they're playing. So it is really exciting. It's exciting to be able to see Dortmund in person in the States. Was it last summer? They were also in the States, and we saw them just a preseason friendly match with Chelsea. And that was my first time seeing him in person. I've never made the trip over to Dortmund to see him, but it's just like, it felt like a surreal experience just seeing them. And we weren't that close, but it was pretty cool. So, and now they're playing for something, right? There's actually something on the line in this tournament, and it's crazy pulling up FOTMOB and pulling up the first match is just 26 days away, because that does not feel far at all. Like I said, we're getting right into it, but they do start the Club World Cup campaign against Fluminense. Sorry, again, pronunciations, don't know anything. June 17th, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, before shifting over to Cincinnati for a couple games on the 21st against Mamelodi Sundowns and Ulsan HD on June 25th.
Don't ask me about any of those oppositions, by the way. Tactically, in terms of personnel, it's a bit out of my wheelhouse.
Well, one note on our personnel, because I know we talked about Chukwuemeka a little bit earlier, and doesn't look like we're going to purchase him. Price might be a little too high. I also saw that it doesn't look, there's some talks of maybe extending his loan, getting him on loan for another year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it does look like they're doing a 2-week loan extension to keep him for the entirety of the FIFA Club World Cup. So still a Dortmund player for a little bit longer. And then as far as like Bynoe-Gittens, I don't know if he'll still be around. I think they're trying to keep him. I don't know exactly when well, he's on contract for a while, so it depends on really if a club comes in for him. But I'm assuming they'll try to keep him for the Club World Cup. This is a really interesting time too for this tournament to happen. I mean, they kind of placed it perfectly to like cue the chaos of trying to sign players and move players early. Yeah, because I know a lot of these clubs will be trying to make moves or trying to bring some people in, but it looks like, I mean, for us right now, Czech Mecca, they were going to try to keep him. I don't know if we'll be able to make any other moves in or out before the Club World Cup. I imagine they try to keep as many people as they can, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of business to take care of, obviously, but hopefully, if you could find some sort of positive spin on it, it forces the club to be a bit more proactive, because that's what Dortmund is arguably. Well, it's one of their better traits, definitely in the transfer window historically. And I would argue, as of recent years, there's been a little bit of fall off there. So hopefully, we can continue the momentum after Svensson. And the reports are already that there's some decent sightings out there for maybe some new blood. And yeah, we'll see these next 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's going to be pretty revealing here of who's going to be out the door and who's coming in.
If you are going to any of the games in New Jersey or Cincinnati, let us know, because we might see you there in Cincy specifically. Let us know what game you're going to. There's been talk about it a lot, but our Discord, it's kind of where Carver and I are the most active. And speaking for myself, as far as like communicating with other Dortmund fans, don't use our socials as much anymore. We still put a few things out here and there. But I love our Discord channel and the community that we've grown there, and a lot of people connecting from across the country during match days, beyond match days, and now in the Club World Cup, where I know people, we have a Discord little chat channel within our Discord specifically about the Club World Cup, and a lot of people planning to meet up for these games, which is going to be cool. So if you're not in our Discord, get connected, let us know. Yeah, I don't know, anything else on Club World Cup, Carver? You got anything?
No, I do not.
And one more time, survey, our end of year survey, so that you can get involved with talking about transfers, how the season went, favorite player of the year. I haven't filled out the survey yet specifically, Carver, but I will before we actually do it. Because I wanted you to be able to plug it more and give a little more details if you want.
Yeah, I've already mentioned a lot of it already. It's just a fun way to, get involved. But I also just kind of like seeing the data behind what people think here for a lot of different things. And of course, we'll go over the results here, potentially even with a guest, question mark, here in the next few weeks. I'm not sure if that episode will be out next week or the following here, but yeah, make sure to give the form a filling. It's only going to take a few minutes. It's not long or anything like that. And hopefully it's entertaining and there's some feedback at the end. So if there's something that you wanted to see in there that wasn't, feel free to throw that in there, because I'm always open to anything new.
Awesome. Dortmund's in the Champions League. They freaking did it. Pay that man his money. Dortmund's in the
We're
Club
literally
World Cup.
that Olympic meme of popping the champagne and spraying it on everyone, and then it's just fourth place.
Hey, we'll take it. We'll take it right now. Club World Cup, if you're going, let us know. Get connected on our Discord. Fill out the survey. Yeah, we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. It's been a good season. I can't talk. It's been a good season, and still more to come this summer. So, yeah, stay connected, and we will talk with you guys soon.